So, welcome. So good to see you again. Nick?
오늘 정말로다 아니 가정의 정도마 로종세 대체도 우리 수수삼로라 삼로 동수지 로종직 거였다. 네 가르스나 조원이 로종 리그 로종 다당가도 삽진도 사자도 제네 그 값을 봐봤더니 저거 똑같이 걸. 저거 똑같이 제동 말로 로징가 당아도 우리는 시기 올 때나 당아도 식상마 맞게로든지 용을 줄다 되나. 나 제동 지나때 처음에 딱 마시고 메인 로즈 남은 또 모토 지고한테 내가 때문에 지금 제가 나한테 좀 받지 제가 나한테 전에 있는 아주 주시말로나 저 다른도 용어 채다 아니 지금 때문에 몇 전에 지금 민중 삼바게라 키워서 뭐 데리가 가르치 아니 뭐지 다다 유튜브 미리든 더 받다 다시 모임 받다 빈지가 나와요 받다 모토 지네 때라 아니 지금 배추 요거 동투하고 that's what it's about. Constitution Kurchika, you are one secrets. It's almost on special or the one when it's regular that is not considered to show the Ribacha Chicken with us and this also which you would say you might don't on that much. Some people leave you when you must say you might cat for some of the don't find out and it keeps on
Again, thank you for coming. And let's see. Let's continue. And so we are here to continue and our discussion. And essentially, this discussion is also the training of the mind. The training of the mind in this particular context means that you learn to understand the things and the events and the nature, and and then basically it's about the reality of the life, and through this kind of system or the learning process. So, the process of training of the mind. So we say in Tibetan, Lo Jong, and Lo is mind, and Jong is a kind of a purify, correct, and study, learn, and or got to train, be trained. So training from what? And the training from the things which we haven't learned yet, the things we are not aware of, and the reality we never really seriously and honestly and openly questioned or reflect upon. So for that reason, this kind of a training of the mind is necessary, because only through this kind of training, then we'll be able to sort of have a holistic view, the goal of the life. And so then we can really understand the life and as whole in its a full sort of capacity. So one of the things we got to train, needed to understand or openly discuss to it, and is about the impermanence of death, right? That generally speaking, we know we all agree, and the death is inevitable, and death is part of our living experience. But we never brought this understanding and this understanding of the rather as reality, and integrate it into our spiritual growth, right? A lot of times we sort of admit it, but then we let it go, and let it slip away from our conscious, the conscious understanding, rationally, and looking upon the deeper, and to understand it better. So this understanding of the impermanence of death, and is based on the real experience. It's nothing really something kind of philosophical or religious dogma. but rather it is the actuality. It is the what we are in and how we, and it's a matter of how we. Since it is within us, is our life itself. So, the question is how we handle it. If you can understand the impermanence of death and put it in the context of spiritual growth, make it, then you will have a purpose of a life. So in other words, you will have some kind of a goal, and then you can, according to the goal, and use your life and bring your life into its full capacity. And because see, when you understand the impermanent death, and as a real, real thing, that is real, and something that's not just like ideology or ideas or the understanding of some kind of philosophical view, but rather, when you think about impermanent death, you think, oh, this is involved in the process of birth. This is involved in the process of aging, and then it's also involved in the process of sickness, and eventually the death itself. And so then you know the life is the actuality of the life. And this understanding will help you to develop what we call the renunciation, or the mind of renunciation. Then you can sort of wisely select it, right? And select it and prioritize and make the perfect choice of it in your life. And then you also will come to the point that you will know how precious this life you have, and the form of a body which you possess is how rare and how valuable. So you can enjoy life better, you can appreciate it more, and you can use it to take the great advantage of this precious body. So therefore, I wanted to point out this to you. And so when we talk about the impermanence of death, it's could be uncomfortable for somebody, and it could be sensitive, but we're not good. The purpose of this conversation is not to make somebody uncomfortable or scared of, rather, and to let you look at the real thing as how it is, and then from there, and determined to make your life as something that is very meaningful and purposeful and full of value.
How do I talk about Niwa Tenora, Niwa Tilla, no me John Dever, Masawa, the Ego bring you a short summer. It's a young Li me paton, there no by maybe. The shepherd supper to tell the load of that energy. Then the map is on you can do it. Joji Chemogo Corridon with all the Sanjig do the system of Donkey Otondas in Rui, Chuacarton, Tower Chons in Rui, Seto Namkilo Londa de, there's a truth at the Bapan Rose at some people at the Lozma.
Oh, yeah, something do send it to the board Sanshang, I just on that.
No, Sanshang, Yashiro. Yashiro didn't Sanjiro, the long Yashiro along the Donnet, somebody was when you are in what's going on.
Do the zero, right? Oh, yeah. And the Junjig long in the Yora.
When you want Mate on this Junjik going with the Junjik. Oh, send the doctor with your son, nobody in a touch or Germany said that Junjik. Oh, yeah. Junjik, last one. Something you want to know.
Oh, yeah. Okay. 你把什么呀呀？什么国人讲话，什么嘛加上我们。
什么国人讲话的嘛？啊？哦，什么国人讲话？
哥哥。
哦。
哥哥。
哥的。
哦，哥哥。
哦，哥的。
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. So now please go to your translation, page 27. Your translation of 27. Right. And 그거는
good.
뭐가 그든 건가?
Go.
Oh yeah. Okay. So with from the bottom and up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it says secondly. Okay, start from secondly. Secondly, reflect as you cannot increase your lifespan. It constantly declines, so death is inevitable. Not only is your lifespan brief, but it decreases continually as years are exhausted at the pass of months, months by the passing of days, and the days by the passing of nights, as Shantideva says in Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Life is always slipping away and can never be increased. Why will death not come to one like me? This should be contemplated by means of examples, special verses collected by topic says, just as weaving yarn stretched back and forth across a loop finally runs out, so too does every person's life. Just as every step of one condemned brings him ever closer to executioner, so too is every person's life. Just as the flow of the waterfall can never be reversed, so a person's life runs on without increase and beyond recall. Hard to find, and yet so brief, and giving rise to so much pain, lives are quickly destroyed, like the writing of a stick on water. Just as the shepherd with his staff drives his flock into the fold, so old age and sickness deliver people to the Lord of Death. Expensive Sport Sutra says, the three realms are as fleeting as autumn clouds. The birth and the death of beings unfolds like a play, their lives rushing away like a mountain stream, vanish like a flash of lightning. Thirdly, the way aku ganti sempat cakap bisa jenis lokal, data lokal.
Oh, sempat bilang ya.
Ya,我这个问题就是啦。
단디 도도로 좀 무지매다. 치왕이 방가 르시당 거로. 치왕이 진비 르시 존지면 너 바뀌니 이면은 나타 저점이 이제 아주 체들을 느리 산이다. 리그 첸데 같이 있는 파송의 기회기 정도 상대체는 얘는 막 월진이 이마가 내가 차고 되잖아. 치왕이 진리 뒤자 안에 남을 시위 차대를 베르비 인도 마치라지네 교환들이 교화심마송 심만심마송 베르비 남식이 차대 그 아도이나 마르비 차대 참아야 세송나 상기가 사와던 lep탑을 걸. 에서다 아도 바토지니 관데 시네 리더라 쇼지 차신지니 되니 같이 손집지나라 이 니마차 노장당 로즈 고마도 카제고 그 자다 리드 배주 땅에는 리드 돈치 모르지 데이터 리드 배주 요이 데이터 돈치 전부 배주 땅전에 아니 때라된 도중 요고지 도중지 그런 요고지 라우슨 탐진의 디키튼 토와이나 어떤 멋지게 용어 또 도도도 성동 거지
Okay. I guess based on our reading, we know this very idea of the essence of the point, the very idea of this the text is a kind of a self-explanatory because essentially it talks about the very brutal reality that we have to deal with it. And like Shantideva pointed out in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, life is always slipping away, slipping and by, meaning that constantly it's the flux of the constant changing and so when you look at the changes from two aspects, one is the changing that taking place at a physical body level, and the changing that taking place at a conscious or mind level, mind conscious level, if you like. So first of all, look at these changes, how it affects and influence affect us, and how it's a sort of reveal, right, and itself, this the brutal reality of changing impermanence reveal itself in a vivid sort of a form, or vividly, and look from at our physical level, or from the physical body aspect. When you look at this changing, you will know that your body, there's a physical and sort of a aspect of you is constantly, moment by moment, moment from moment, and is constantly changing, is diminishing, and but never increasing. So this is true. You can tell. It's quite obvious to all of us, and it's not a hidden phenomena at all, but rather it is very apparent and obvious to our senses, our mind. So, and just of there, that you got to understand the belief this physical aspect of yourself is now changing, or fail to capture this vivid sense of a picture of this reality, and then of course it is considered to be so not just wrong, but as spiritually speaking, is very damaging, because if you fail to recognize or identify, really see the things as they are, or the reality of your physical aspect of you, meaning that it's the change moment by moment, and then of course then you will under the influence, or you will live with the illusion, which of course is not acceptable. And then when you look at the changes from the perspective of the consciousness or mind consciousness, as the point of view from that particular aspect, looking in your very so-called life or the living experiences, the consciousness itself. And also, just like a physical aspect of you, the conscious aspect of you, the mind aspect of you, also is changing moment by moment. And this continuity of the consciousness, is the first moment, and then sort of pass down to the second, and then third, and then go on and on. So there's no really a moment of so-called fixed or prominent changeless and in where within your mind and your consciousness. So both the consciousness and the physical aspects of you are driven by this natural law and of changing. So meaning that it's moment to moment going. And see, this is very useful because now you can see that even though both the physical aspect of you and the consciousness aspect of you are changing, and but once you adopt this changing, and then you can be aware of and embrace this changing, and then make the plan for your life, and then take the advantages of whatever you have, and to do something that's set up with some kind of a higher purpose and a greater purpose, and then to fulfill that desire and to reach, try to reach that goal. In other words, to use this and the moment by moment transformational changes occur in your body, your mind, and to do something greater and meaningful. So, and in this lifetime, this is just like, for example, in the case of school work or the schooling and study, and once you fully understand the impermanence of the aspect of the reality of your body and the impermanent aspect of your life, and the consciousness, your energy, your time, and to do the schoolwork well, and at the same time also thinking that the purpose for you to go to school education and is aimed both at the worldly education and spiritual education is aimed to do something greater for yourself and ultimately, and of course at the same time, and use that education to benefit others. So then you can take care of your life, and my understanding is two aspects of the changes at the mind and the body level, and then so you can reach you reach your life and both and worldly and spiritually.
아스마다 노작가 그거. 선바소비 태양 제일 오늘 봐도.
Okay.
먹으나 이 많은 거 삽질 이와 남친님이 뭐였지?
남친님의 I can see how many 남친님이 oh yeah okay. So now on your page 29, so we're going to read yes, here it says, thirdly, the way to think about the certainty of death and the rarity of being able to practice the doctrine in this life is as follows. The Sutra on entering into the womb says, half our lives are spent asleep. Until we are 10, we are children, and after 20, we grow old. Then there are hundreds of other obstructions, miseries, lamentations, suffering, depression, even quarreling, and various physical ailments, which limit our opportunity to practice. Chicha said, out of 60 years, if you take away the time spent on little food and sickness, there is barely 5 years directed to the doctrine. Birth stories and Allah's thought is filled with disturbing emotions, an unreliable and unpleasant place to live. The glory of this water lily will soon become but a memory. Such is the fate of all beings. It is surprising that people still do not feel afraid, even though all roads are blocked by the Lord of Death. They are thoughtlessly lost in enjoyment. The destructive enemies, disease, old age, and death are powerful and unavoidable. When they are certainly heading for danger in future lives, how can the wise enjoy any happiness? The letter to King Kanika says, "The Lord of Death is merciless. He kills a skillful man for no purpose. When death is so fast approaching, what wise man can live at ease? Eventually, the invincible warrior will shoot his unbearable arrows before the inevitable occurs. It is in our interest to be prepared."
자성. 뭐야?
자성로.
소들에 단 남친님이 막 치왕이 진 맞아. 치왕이 진 선발. 치왕이 진 치와대 맞아. 정말 섬도 시기를 정말 아주 끼와를 봐야 시야 봐. 당원의 전에 섬로지 때문에 로야공 그 미치가 통하면 가르쳐 정말 시소요 막. 당 아주 단들이 봤을 로야가 질러 아주 치가 여러 말 정말 시소요 막. 인상 아주 치왕이 진데 남친님이 이 자당아도 교시 시송한다 가와 용거리다 좋았더리다. 다 교시 어떤 넘바선이 교시마 다 칠리마도 교시마 켈고 교시마 교링거리스 교시마 때 요비 접시로 가려요르다 소소는 그러니 좋아던 거. 교시마 간다 요래. 교시마 지금 만통신다 차와 정도. 근데 그 배나 아주 성인 요바 스지가 통요 말 성인 요바 아주 성이 이치지고라. 근데 성인이 요거 용화가 제때 대랑 맞추지니 깔리감니 로지마가 사원당 도토레 쳇달로 시카니 좀데 베칼리 잡네 근데 사원담지 딘디오 동안 맞추지고라 때 강스랑 아주 티시 마음와 킬링 거자 때 마음와 종질때 somos chicos. Entonces, cuando yo se mate, yo también diga no yo tanto soso ngone. Yo pa también pa ni ngone yo pa la tenio, como se mi mong yo ha shi ten dong lo ji mong bu yo re, de ngao de jo le on zo mi song ma ti mo so man dao ge sem nga sang lo tang tang de shikare kom shi to man do yo jo nga ma pa chak de ngong yo wa so. Te de gong de de shi ngong tang wo. De za da jo ma shi yo de jo shi ma yo chong na jo shi ma ro de 요나 교와시마테 로나 간다지 로사 간다지 그래서나 다 선이 좀 된데잖아. 그런 거 샘라라고 해. 샘바정나 사동라면 샘바정나 사동 서방가나 사동라면 간지니 성동간바 그자 당하는 그런 거다 체들라 안에 리그비 있음 거 조바팅 간바 용 그래서 지당으로 측츠보 아니 타마 타오 아니 밀라 저 노스um 타오 밀라 노바케라 가오 소조바당 된데 로인라 수바 된데 가오요 어떤 용 그래서 샘거 차당 공의 용화です. 대자네 대라 대는 류대 신들라야 첨등가와라 소바 용화마스 세시만 남성한 동안 송동안 루네스 교화용 거래서. 아니 주팀 신들라 아니 디주 통동구나 리드 배주당의 샘디 동라 샴당 형지 셰르블라 소바 곰바이나 온 디 류라 대니 교로 신들라야나 샤바당 형지 용글 미지나 미드기 잘라 판심 치고 용화 전 샤와당 시는 니와 잠바지 yen tongla kati jala rochine ngalwa mewa tedi chine ene jen samala kola gawayo tsendela ko dewa da nyentriwa tedi shiwi china ko kewa shima namse li jong bo thokore tsbor tina sherep peju tangna tsendela naman nonchime be lam yen dela shik te herep yongala tambo tisum gonsum chibores tisum go tiwa chi tiwi ton samba ton gomchine 어때 고명을 좀 해르고 멍쳐 다시던 거 선지 좀 근데 그런 적당한데 선비 차리 빠지래 다시던 거니 섬지 담지 철로라 보라전에 쏟고 능을다 예가나치 능을 먹고 통무지네 때 제가 능을 간디 용어로 또 세트 가는 거지 그런 거 당부배 똑바요 매를 좋아 동서 좋아 코치 코로 레벨 좋아지 레벨고 말때잖아 코치가네 구조하고 그런 거 용통이 냠스 용말라 때는 좀 연구했어. 진짜 그런 거다 야 장가라는 거 맞추지니 검진이 가고 저는 그런 선이 야식 번에 나나라서 로트가 깔리게 타마데 아니 다 넘버선 유치딩이 바로 넘버 7 예비 치대 가르즈나 된종을 되는 종을 탐지 찍찍라 되는 종을다 때라 때네 렌디가 남자 마디 용모들 렌디가 남자 때라 때네 렌디가 소라 마디 용모들 렌디가 소라 용사때 먼저 삼도 끌어와 되는 용모들 어때 진짜 코파 더트는 샘났다 샘때요 랑진기 드바치가 메게 찍찍라 된종 거네 들교즈리 어떻게 소요 진짜 된종부터 monster 통이 때문에 그런 거 배워 땅에 심지함지 능력이 좋아 타분도 내레스 친일 때 봤다미 저월지는 능이 아니 지금 심지함지 능력 나라 형지와 심지도 능력 통용으로 송이 들레 잔도 무서워요 이 당보니 그런지 내가 선지가 합시 심지도 능력이 진짜 저월때 이나 선지 능이 니와때 심지도 능력 라파렌 보면 그 지고는 나먹건 너는 지지 않아지 그 바닥 보면 소소랑이랑 사주다랑 그런 용고가 따텔리 타분 가려서 네 예비단다 리판들라 그 시가에다 때는 냠슬렘바나 네 니고 공판도 토거다 렌트 타이어 때저 처음에 세마섬진에 리튼드 배추 요거지 당진에 삼노정 보지기네 린 요거지진에 테나네 저와당 계진데 치위치다 소소 참나 요밤에 뵙고 진짜 치터가 그때 용고를 때서다 처음에 쇼라 삼 샘상 보지 유도 같이 벌써 도도로 What's one?
Chess one.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. But it's chess on the so. Okay. So we are basically here discussed the two things which we know well, and we just never sort of bring that or make it the knowledge which we possessing in a very meaningful way. Okay, and so we have two sort of knowledge concerning the two certainty. Right. First of all, we know for sure the one certainty is death is certain. Okay, the certainty, the knowledge of certainty is with us. We know, and we don't need to really do anything about it. It's just there. So the certainty of knowledge with regard to the death, whether that is something certain or not, we know it is for sure. It is certain. And then, second, the certainty of the knowledge concern the certainty is that we know. When we will die, there's no certainty. There's no, we're not sure. There's no certainty. Our certainty of the knowledge with respect to when we will be die, and we just have no idea. We have no certain. Then the sense of the certain, know for no sure. We know for no sure when we will die. Okay, we know for sure we will be die, but we don't know when we will die. And so those two knowledges are, and is being here sort of enlarged or being examined under the microscope of Buddhist, through the lens of a Buddhist understanding about the life. Okay, in the spiritual way, which is that being brought to enhance or to enhance and also to purify our true knowledges, right? And meaning that so by broad the understanding of the death is inevitable and death is certain, right? Then we should then say, okay, then then we'll have to make the prioritize our life accordingly, right? And of course, in this context is spiritually what do we need to do? So we can make a plan for the life accordingly, and then once you made that plan, then you have to think about when will we die, and your answer is I'm not sure, right? You for no there's no certainty. So then again, you take the second step, right? And then to make your further to prioritize your life, right? Prioritize your life and yes, make a plan for your life and according to this reality, the second reality that is we don't know when will we die. Okay. It sounds easy, but in fact, we have to really reflect upon these 2 points and repeatedly, and we need to really make it very clear and to ourselves. So one way to do that is to really make it. This is very true, and is that we look in the past, right? And you think about 100 years ago, right? Think from a historical point of view. 100 years ago, there was right, and in the history, there were people, things, events, right? So much so and happened, right, taking place. But now we look at what happened to the people and who lived 100 years ago. Oh, in not here, right? None. And that tells a big, reveals you a big truth there, right there. Then from this very knowledge, then look at yourself, right? Think from the future 100 years ago, later, right? Put yourself from the 100 years later perspective and look back at your present today. If you look from 100 years from now and look back today yourself, obviously, there's nothing really here at all. You are not present. And so both we look from the past and we look from the future, and there's nothing there really remain the same, even though to our senses, right, and prior to our exam or investigation, that seems the case. But as soon as you put it in the perspective, analysis, and how the actuality of your present life is. So yes, when you look at this changing, right, from past and from future, and so one thing is this changing will make it or taking place or become something that's very serious to you is the death. And then further, death should give, and then also raise the question for you about life after, right? So death is inevitable, but then what happened? So after the death, right, the life after, or the next life is become a serious matter. So throughout the world religion, or in the spectrum of world religion, when you're looking into a religion, those systematically and established and religion, and all of them accept one basic concept, and that is life after, or the existence of a life after. So they all claim in the soul or person or consciousness or some kind of a being will continue after death. And so none of them would think will accept at this point in the existence of they all accept the existence of after. And yet, to those atheists or those who sort of still wondering about life after, and they may say, maybe, who knows, right? And at this very point about life after, they become very skeptical, and even they tend to think that who knows, and suggest some kind of why you care so much. In fact, this attitude is unjustifiable, because if you say who knows, right, life after life after death, and then this question is, if you know the life after, who knows, because nobody see, right, or nobody seen, and then how you can also believe tomorrow, right, the existence of tomorrow? Because from today's point of view, tomorrow hasn't happened, come yet. It's like remain mystical and unseen, right, the tomorrow. And there's no way for you to be certain tomorrow is not there or it will not come. In reality, your basic senses or common senses, right? You experience everything. You know that, like, generally speaking, there is tomorrow, right? And really, life is targeted. Life after, as a reality, no one cannot deny, because we not only philosophically and logically, right, and through the syllogism, we're arguing, right, and then establish and reach the gain the certainty, or the sort of develop a valid conclusion, say yes, there is life after. And even we don't need even we not have this kind of the intellectual and investigation, just depend on our very social and day-to-day life stories about common sense and life, the stories of the taking place in our daily life throughout the world, in the communities and throughout the world. We know there are people who had this life after death experience, right? After their death, and the sort of a semi-death experience. They saw and they had a personal experience about the life after. And also, there are people who remember, who had vivid memories, recall their past life, and so who testify, right? And they verified that her memory was what he or she recalled is true, is real, and so. And another, right? And this is the second thing, right? This is the common and sense and the evidence we have. We can use it. But further, you can take another perspective, look at this life after. Also, say whether that's to overcome our doubts about whether that this is real or true. We can look at this the situations like each individual, right? People born in the same family, in the same race or same country, right? And but when you look and grow up in the same conditions or same living environment and so on and so forth, there's so much similarities there. But people grow up and become a person with a great wisdom. As an insight. So this wisdom and insight will understand the life and the actuality of the life, and then and follow that, live with that wisdom, and will make everything is very completely different. So now, how we develop this wisdom, right? This wisdom for understand the life, right, and fully, and then make the life very meaningful. Is that we have to begin with, we have to go through the process of hearing this kind of wisdom and contemplating this kind of wisdom, and then meditate on this kind of wisdom. So first of all, learning this kind of wisdom, and then contemplating, refine, right, and overcome the doubts about concerning the validity of this wisdom, and then you meditate day and night on this wisdom. So this, when I talk about this, what I'm thinking in my mind is that I see Buddha is the scientist at this point. Why? Because Buddha is really determines and verify and approach perceiving everything is just like the modern scientists do, right? And the science and the evidence, right? And the experience, right? So Buddha really they go through all this, the process of investigation or study, just like the modern science does. It's quite kind of a experience, amazing. And when you look back at the Buddha's life story, you also know that, Buddha began this kind of investigation and out of a serious question. He started with a question about his life, even though he was a prince, and so he owns all kinds of luxuries and the material and the most highest levels of the material and material life in terms of enjoying the earthly life. But Buddha began to question in the true meaning of life, right? Then eventually, and he used his personal experience and challenged the systems of the religious philosophy, religious knowledge, and the social, whatever the ideas or the concepts and explanations concerning the meaning of the life at his time. So, and he wasn't satisfied, and he left the palace, abandoned his luxurious life. He set off, went to the woods, right, and engaging and underwent to the 6 years of asceticism. Okay, asceticism. Okay, asceticism. He lived like ascetic for 6 years, and his meditation, he realized, fully understood the life, the meaning of life, the actual status of life, and the nature of the life, and then he come up with the understanding of the universal truth that is a dependent origination or dependent arising. So this dependent arising is marked by basically to our, in the context of us, what is relevant to us is about the law of karma. So law of karma is that because the dependent arising, the things, events is dependently originated, dependent arising. So therefore, your action and so the result of action and would dictate the outcomes. So therefore, so start with this mental formation, right, all the way to the subtle level, right, and then to the verbal and bodily, whatever the experiences you have or the actions you taking, the way you responded, and that is that's a sort of lead you or forming your future, the experience of future life. So yes, so Buddha see the life, see the actuality, see the ultimate reality, and by understanding the everything, all phenomena, and their status and the basic status and the fundamentals, the truth is dependent arising. And then the Buddha come on to the conclusion that every individual, there has to be the master of their own and the protector of their own. Okay, and then Buddha set off and then gave the taught and the teaching, and by saying that you got to understand the basic reality, the truth through your own individual's effort and the sort of self-help. And otherwise, all the enlightened one, and who, in the case of here, the Buddha says, I won't, I cannot, and then wash out whatever the things that affect you, and or negatively, especially negatively affect you, your life experiences. I cannot washed out with the water. You wash the dirt on the surface of the container. So that's would not happening. So only way you free yourself from the miseries and the suffering is to adopt and to practice the dependent arising. This is a fundamental universal truth. And only through realization of this universal fundamental truth of dependent arising, and by seeing, have this direct personal realization of dependent arising, you can free yourself from the suffering and causes of suffering. So I guess, yes, this is a very important point in Buddhism we have to remember. So I wish, we can from time to time reflecting this very crucial and essential point and try to remember it. Try to remember it, and then at the same time also know, to perfect this understanding, to enhance this the knowledge of dependent arising, right, and to achieve the full realization or perfect realization, then we have to know that it requires a great deal of appropriate form of life and the earthly body. In our case, is the precious human body, the human rebirth. So then we know that this precious human rebirth that we gained, we obtained, is changing, and it's decreasing instead of increasing. So at this point, yes, reflecting on the death and the certainty of the death and the uncertainty of the death is can be very, very meaningful.
Oh yeah, 다음에 좀 좋아요나 좋아하면 너무
싶어요. So now we have about 10-15 minutes, and do you have any questions for me? If you don't, then I can share some kind of stories.
지금부터 우리 단다 시작할 우리는 시작이요. 뭐만이 야갈 그 공습도 공무기니 기니 온데 뭐에 나무 참아 공배나 요지니까 되는 요시하고 되나만 용이 초과요 보이니 요지시네. 근데 그조다 아마 가져야 공습할 공습진이 그 자리 받으려라. 고다 좋든 자리 받으야 막다시 당네. 근데 그야 친구 차네. 로드든 versus 사자로 세계안에 되네. 저치 전체는 못 정도 되는 니도 사자 모르는 것이 바로 사자 대한 조가요와 불이니와 기미 동성들 어떻게 놀기로 했지만 뭐다 빠르게 빠르게 도들다 똑같이 좁기 즐거지는 야 그런 거 어떤지 지금 다 교시마대 공부 계셔 어떤지 지금 코다다 단다티 보면 춘주들 경험하실 때만 봤었다 그런 능미들라 시고 척신 사람들 지어시고 있어 어떤지 그다 놀기 모이는 책 놀기 잡으러 올라 뭐 그때는 신주기 진행 거 때서도 때때 그 제동 경험 없이 전바대 간다 용어서 밑에 홉트칼랑아도 사지면은 중앙에서 양지 동성회나 디노 잠바트 때문에 보세요. 그마도다 사치라딘 천롱라 농나고 농가남시다 준비 전에 홀로지 동성회나 디남시들 준비 지금 중앙에서도 마사지네 근데 준비 지금 서우며 전에 이겨와서만 실전도 뭐 홉트칼 가지고 때 나 지금 경험하실 때 봐라 가 용어서 어디 잡으려서 때 아니 영호마마 야노즈네요 그 전좀 파악이 파쇼 치파가는 동서도 뒤나기 그 치파가가 동서되게 폴라지긴 망신 뒤인라 같이들라고 했어. 그것도 그래도 다ሾ들 레벨인데 맞아 보기 좀 빨라 남시죠. 그도 남이게 길이지 맞아 가지고 그거 다ሾ들 남이 기침 버렸어. 그게 다 대비게 그 지시지 그 뭐가 자신 무슨 클리마즈다 담아대 같이 파쇼 무성되는 여러 지정의 사성되라 여러 좀 사성디 사가지고 되니 다 말라디 가서 마시지다 어떻게 담아다 거기 결혼 오늘 뭐 있나 결혼 정말 결혼 사다디 결혼 키 또 거요 이제 그것도 컴바치션이 컴바디 도가 호버나 이거든 어떻게 시네 근데 그 다다 포트 버는 사다 예스 근데 얘네 그런 거 리미트 클린지고 좋아서 나 발라디 또 사상 냅서 손에 까빠니네 그래서 이제 어떻게 시나 디브드 남시 서오데 또 뭐 그것도 놓치는 거 놓기 대책 디노나 되는데 로기 먹고 좀 어떻게 어떻게 진짜 영화시고 접시든지 되는 용도로서
Yeah. Okay. So my story is about again and concerning the matter of life after, because after all, this is a very challenging the question, and yes, it is something kind of hard to make us something that's the sort of our first-handed experience or the knowledge, and so there's two stories, and I have heard. I find that so it's very interesting. And the first story is related to the Indian. A villager in India, and it's a very recent story. Actually close to the city Bombay, and they used to today called Mumbai. They used to be called Bombay. So not far from outside the city is Mumbai or Bombay. In the village, there was a girl who was in a family, and they received the birth of a child, a baby girl born to a family, and then when she reached about 6-7 years old, and she repeatedly say, and she is so and so, she was so and so, and the reincarnation of the person, actually, and so in the city was born in Bombay, the city Bombay. She named the husband's name and the family's immediate family members, and repeatedly saying that. And because she was young and child, and people didn't take it seriously, but she often mentioned about this and again and again. And then when she reached like age 18 and 19 something and went to school, and she still occasionally have this vivid memories and pictures about what happened. So, and then based on her description, and then people went to that city and find that person, and there was to those sort of searching, or the small team who went to looking for the finding the truth, and to their amazement, indeed, just like the girl who described, there was a man, and the age, everything is just matches, and the names and the family and the members and the family, all of them match. And then they told about his story for what the girl said, and then they say, yes, there was the case. And so the woman was wife of the man, and who died of this all of Saturn, and then so then they find out, well, this is something. What did she say? And what was really happened and going on is verifiable. So that was yes. Actually, this story is the researcher, a group of researchers who went and did the exams, because the people from one to others, they sort of talking to each other, then spread the news, and then caught the attention of a team of researchers who was interested to this kind of phenomena, and then they went and then verified the case and they confirmed that was the truth. And this reminds me about among all kinds of death and the death and the memorizations of the previous life. It seems clear to me, based on the other people's scholars' writing, is that when we die, right, among all kinds of ways of the death. And if someone who died all of a sudden, and meaning that his or her death wasn't gradual, meaning like the earth element sort of and dissolved into water element, and the water elements of that individual, right, the body, then dissolved the fire and the air, right. So if the person's death is not gradual, did not went through the process of this dissolution, right, the serials of dissolution, if it happens just like right away, boom, one cut, and then in that person, is the chances are he or she can remember the past life and more easier and the kind of faster. By contrast, if a person who died in natural through the natural process, right? Like I said, the earth element dissolve into water element and the fire and the wind. It's through this gradual process of death for ordinary people, when the person of the ordinary and the kind of ordinary person, then their memories about the previous life will be very vague or very weak. They can't sort of remember. It's because there's through this long process of dissolution, and then the maybe the picture or the memories about past life somehow is suggested is being wiped out or been damaged. And then another story, and I read from the one of the modern day Tibetan Buddhist scholar, and also the very famous teacher, the Khampo Tsultrim Lodji. What they say is about the story, and tells that a man and who a village, yes, and then in a village a family received the birth of a boy, and then after the boy able to speaking, he repeatedly again claimed that he was a so-and-so person and crossed the water. Sounds like a river or the creek, the water, and between beyond the village, beyond the other side of the river. And he said, I was that person, and my home there, and I was so and so. And so, and then again, it's through the process of the growing process of this stages of the life and growing, and then the people began to pay close attention to this same voice, the same claim. Then they approached that family and who lives the other side of the river, and that family is a rich family and the landowner. So they thought, and this boy somehow who born in this life beside of this side of the river, as well as a poor family. So for the rich family, and thought, this little boy who claimed and his father, right, the owner of the land in previous lifetime, their father, and maybe they have a bad motivation. They want to come to own something or get some kind of materialistic benefits. So they rejected. They didn't really accept the boy's claim. And then one day, and so there was a quarreling, right? Quarreling or arguments taking place among the families like sons or daughters regarding the ownership of the land. Then while they were quarreling and they couldn't resolve the issue because there's supposed to be a piece of map, right? A document, a map, and it tells the land and the size of the land, the property, and it described has been documented. And since they can't find it, then they thought about this boy. At that point, they said that boy used to claim as a father, in previous life, our father in previous lifetime. Why ask him if he's real the father? And so then they went to him, and he explained. So if you go to the roof and so like the roof ceiling, not like in the house in the United States mostly. In the old time, you can see the beam, right? The beam, the roof, and not roof. Inside the house, there's a beam. So he told that behind the beam and attached to the documents in a little hole. So then they went and find this documents. So of course the point I'm trying to make is based on these writings and record and so life after is something is you can't really randomly say there's no such a thing because this kind of personal testimony and personal life stories really tells us life after is indeed something existed.
Good stories.
Okay. Class today.